This is gonna be cool.
The topics and opinions expressed on the Dudes and Beer podcast are intended for an audience of 18 and up and are solely those of the host and guest. They neither reflect the opinions or values of either the sponsors of Dudes and Beer or your mother. I mean, seriously, have you ever heard these guys? They'll talk about anything.
Whoa, hey, you think they're gonna show it? They'll probably just blur it out. Whoa, check it out, Beavis.
Grab your beverages and turn up your interweb. Solving the world's problems 12 ounces at a time. It's Dudes and Beer.
That's what I'm talking about right there. How's everybody doing tonight? How's everybody doing? I am Chris Jordan, your host. Welcome to episode 79 of Dudes and Beer.
Yeah.
We are here at the Cave in Austin Music Rooms. With me, as always, is Steven Bishop, Nelson Kuglke.
Yo.
How you boys doing tonight? We just been kicking it back.
Great. We're a bunch of days.
Had a beverage or two, getting ready for the show and really talking about stuff. And tonight we're kind of doing a double shot. We're going to start off the show talking about this rage of synthetic drugs that's going around. There have been more reports of people going to the ER and everything else from mass use of K2 and spice, things like that. So we're going to talk about that, the inherent dangers of it, as well as getting into a vinyl night doing the album Muara by the artist Monadh. Whenever we come back from this message from our sponsor.
Hey, he don't even have his license, Lisa.
Crazy drunk driver.
Hey everybody, Chris Jordan, host of the Dudes and Beer podcast here. Has this ever happened to you? Tired of looking in your rearview mirror after a couple of drinks with friends or worrying about no-refusal weekends and DUI stops? Are you planning a night on the town and want an easy, safe way to get around while still having fun? Well, Fare is the ride service for you. Simply download the easy-to-use and free Fare app from the Google Play Store or iTunes Marketplace and use promo code DUDES10 every time you ride with Fare to save 10% off your ride. Have a Fare driver you liked riding with? You can not only give them a review and tip, but you can add them to your preferred drivers list on your Fare app and request them every time you ride with Fare. You can schedule rides with Fare to pick you up immediately or as far as 30 minutes to 7 days in advance, eliminating the need for last-minute calls and allowing you to pre-schedule pickups in locations other than your home city. Perfect for those traveling for business or for fun. So don't forget to stop on by and download that free Fare app and use the coupon code DUDES10 every time you ride with Fare to get 10% off your ride. That's right, don't forget the coupon code is DUDES10. So be like Dudes and Beer, everybody. Party safe, use Fare, and drink responsibly.
And we are back. So, yeah, Steve-O was the one that brought this to my attention. I'd been so busy rebooting the Austin Hot Mods website over the weekend and doing stuff that I didn't even have a chance to keep up with a lot of the news on Feedly and everything else, the app that I use. But Steve-O brought to my attention a local situation where how many people were taken to the emergency room?
53 people this week was reported on local news to the ER.
Yeah, that's crazy. And all at one time. So obviously there was a party or something like that going on. Right. It was being passed around. And, here's the thing with the synthetic drug spice and all that kind of stuff. There are some organic options out there. There are some natural herbs that you can use in combination. The stuff that you want to stay away from is the stuff with chemicals on it. Mm-hmm. And what they use is a lot of THC mimickers, things like that, that kind of fall into the research drug pharmaceutical range. Mm-hmm. And they work really hard, the FDA and the FBI, on keeping track of this stuff. And every year you hear about another 15, 20 compounds that hit. But if you watch the documentaries on the stuff, you can also see that
Viceland has one.
Yeah,
I did. I've seen the Viceland.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, watching where they mix it. like the disgusting like
well, and
areas.
I will admit the fact that I knew people who made it. I myself had a herbal blend that I used for a while. And most people use it because they're on paper, they're on probation, something like that. And they use weed as some kind of maintenance before they go to bed, and it can be tough.
It's a good alternative or cheaper alternative.
Well, and the problem is these chemicals that are being used to put on these natural herbs are untested. They don't go through tests. They don't go through anything. So that's the danger that you're dealing with.
Yes.
And whenever you're talking about how rapidly the technology changes, that's how rapidly the formula changes, and the packaging doesn't.
Right.
It's new stuff being sold in the same old packaging.
Yeah, they're changing it every fucking time.
Yeah, and it's really gotten to a point. I've seen somebody have a straight up panic attack using stuff that I was using at the time. I've used the synthetic stuff, and there was one that I used specifically. They don't make it anymore. Crazy Space, that was great. It was phenomenal, but. Yeah, I don't know. The stuff that's going around now,
right?
It's totally different. I knew people who made it, so it was a little different. I knew the process that they were using.
I've seen some videos lately on just recently the epidemic here in Austin over the past week of people, that have smoked and had bad reactions, and there's video that these people, they're pretty much incoherent, and they're doing a lot of strange movements. A lot of them end up with like their clothes off or something in public, and they like don't have control over their body.
Well, and what it reminds me of, even talking about other synthetics, is the epidemic that happened a couple years ago with bath salts. Whenever that was going around, and it was supposed to be like the new designer form of cocaine, that wasn't testable on a test, everything else. But people were using it, and oh my God, the reactions, like, there was one guy that was caught trying to eat a dude's face in Miami, just all kinds of crazy stories. And you heard about all kinds of people ODing on it and having to go to the emergency room with like fibrillations. It does kind of get to the point with either one, and there are even documentaries on that where people were like, "No, I got to use this amount every day." Like this is what I use to maintain, and it's just scary, to see, because it's something that was available like at local head shops and stuff like that. So as long as you were 18, you could go get it.
Wow.
And I've noticed doing the research and seeing the documentaries and stuff on this stuff is like it's kind of like demographic or in a way or whatever, that it's in particular parts of towns where it's like low income and stuff. They're saying that it's a cheaper alternative. They say you can go buy a bag of this like Kush, potpourri, spice, whatever they call it.
For like $15.
Yeah,
$10.
They said even in some places it was $5. They said.
Yeah, no, I used to be able to get Kush at a dollar store over near my buddy's house, and it was like $7 for a bag, something like that.
As cheap as $1 a joint. As cheap as that.
Yeah, and you have to consider. I'd much rather smoke reefer than that. Most definitely. Yeah. And a lot of states are really starting to wise up. There was just a study that was done that was interesting that I was reading today. It's one of the first ones where they've actually shown blood constriction in the brain in the same area as Alzheimer's and stuff like that in people that smoke marijuana. So it was one of the first studies done that really showed that. But other than that, there are amazing health benefits, and they're starting to legalize recreational all over the country. Colorado just did, and they've been reporting record sales in taxes for that, and I mean like 6 times liquor sales.
Wow.
in marijuana. So It's definitely a growth industry, and it's something.
I met a gentleman last night who walked into the restaurant, and he came up to the register. He had his little 7-year-old daughter with him, and he was real talkative and everything, and he got on talking about how he was from Colorado. He moved from Colorado and talked about the legalization or whatnot of marijuana and stuff like that, and he was into, I guess, making what is it? The
oil.
The oil, yeah. And so he's here in Texas, kind of doing it, and he was just saying that he was like, "Oh, Texas is the next one. It's going to happen. It's going to be it's just going to happen." And
I can see it easily happening within the next 5 years here. The tax revenue coming off of it is way too much. We're operating in a surplus. It would do nothing but, and especially being the cancer center that we are, I could especially see it going medical within the next 3, and possibly not fully recreational, but decriminalized.
Right.
Within the next 5, to where there are places that you can go. And that's what most people don't realize, even with the legalization of marijuana, even with the full recreational legalization of marijuana, is it's not like a cigarette. It's the same as a beer. You can't take a 12-pack to the local park and hang out and drink a 12-pack. You can't do that. You can't go to the local park and light up a joint. Either way, you will be given a ticket for public intoxication.
It has to still be responsibly, right?
Yeah. It's meant to be used in your home. It's meant to be used at respectable establishments that purvey it, things like that. And there are places that are starting to allow marijuana in the Denver area, stuff like that.
This customer, I think, if I remember right, was from Denver or lived there. Actually, was from here, born. But as he was in Denver, he said he was leaving a concert, and he was walking, and he had a bag of weed with him, and of course his paraphernalia or whatnot. And there was a bicycle cop or whatever, and got him, pulled him over or stopped him. And he said all he did was take the bag, dump it out, and throw the thing out or whatever, and left. And that was it. And he was like, he even asked him, is that it? You're not going to, do nothing to me? And he was like, man, if this was Texas, and he was like, but it was like, no. Yeah. He was like, it's simple over there. He was like, you might lose a little bit of your stash, but you don't even get a ticket, you know?
Yeah.
It's simple.
Well, and, to go back to the synthetic thing, to me, the danger of it is how rapidly these things come out. And even as someone who worked festivals and stuff like that, where hallucinogens were there, I'm not going to lie, they were around. And to know that now one of the big things to buy whenever you go to them is the testing kits. That's one of the things that my friend sold whenever he went to festivals, was testing kits, so that you could test to make sure that what you just bought is authentic.
I think that's the smartest thing you can do.
That it's real.
Yeah.
Because there are so many synthetic drugs out there now that mimic LSD and stuff like that are just straight up research chemicals that people are dripping on cellophane or on a sugar cube and saying it's acid. And it may have the same effect, but who knows what else it has in it. It may not be the true pure lysergic that is what it is, and you're not getting what you're looking for, and you may get something that's dangerous to you, or more dangerous than the LSD. So
it's like, getting high is one thing, and having fun, that's great. I mean, hell, I'm all for it, but the smart thing to do, wouldn't you want to know what you're putting into your body,
Well, yeah, that's just it.
Yeah. So these testing kits are awesome. That's a very responsible, smart thing to do, I believe.
Well, and it's kind of the same argument as opposed to, brickweed that comes across the border. You have no idea what pesticides have been sprayed on it. You have no idea what's been put on it, and it is a risk that you take whenever you get that stuff. The stuff that comes from Colorado and everything else and from dispensaries doesn't have that issue. It is grown in a sterile environment. It is grown in good conditions. It is taken care of. It doesn't have any chemicals and things like that put on it. And the chemicals that are put on these natural smoking alternatives, these incenses, as they're called, legally in shops. You can't go in and ask for the stuff by name. It's kind of like you can't go in and just say, I want to buy a bong. They ain't selling you jack.
Right. Right. Water pipe, brother.
You ain't buying a book of matches now.
No.
Thank you very much for coming in there.
Please leave the store.
It's a water pipe. And it would be looking for incense is what you're looking for.
Right.
And, it's sold under many different names, but the K2 stuff and everything else, it's something to me that really started taking over with a lot of people because it kind of hit this hip trend where it was there, and people were using it absolutely to still use while they were on probation and stuff like that. But
you've got that aspect of it, and you got it's cheap as fuck.
Well, it's cheap as hell.
Yeah.
It's cheap as hell.
Yeah.
It really is.
So you got two of the best qualities right there. It's like, shit. It's like, dang, this is going to go over big.
But like I said, I've seen somebody have a panic attack using some, and it wasn't pretty. It wasn't nice. I can't imagine if somebody's out in public or something like I've been out in public having a panic attack. Good God, I passed out at one point. I can't imagine that if you're in full-on trip-out mode, if you're in, Steve-O was explaining earlier before the broadcast about a salvia experience, and I never personally had a salvia experience. I tried it a few times, and it never just rang the bell, I guess. It never did what it was supposed to do for me. I know people that have smoked marijuana and not gotten high. Things affect people differently. Some people can have 1 or 2 beers and they're drunk as hell. Other people can have 6 and go, hey, what's up?
Yeah, right.
So, but, what about you? Did you ever have a salvia experience?
Yeah, have you ever did that?
Yeah, once. And it was horrible.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you see, El Diablo or something, bro? What? I mean, expound. Tell us about it.
Well, the girl that I was dating, she said that you might flip out, so she was there comforting me, and so that was kind of a weird aspect of going into and whatever I was about to experience. And so she's just rubbing my chest, she's like, everything's fine, and then I just see these kind of greenish looking flames just going up the wall, just all the walls coming up from the corners.
Crazy.
And then it goes up into the air vent.
Yeah.
And then I reach out and I'm I gotta go up there. And she's like, nope, you're not going anywhere. I'm like, I have to go into the air vent. And then I just kind of start flipping out and I get really paranoid. And then I just get up and I'm like, everything's fine. I need something else. And then I was reaching for a one of those strobe globe lights.
Yeah.
And I thought that would calm me down. Then I turned off the lights and turned that on, and it flipped me.
Whoa, you could do all that?
How long did it last?
15, 17 minutes.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And you had the concept of time during that.
I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember it all.
Okay.
Very well.
Yeah, because not everybody has the concept of time during a hallucinogenic experience.
I lost the concept of time.
But it's not hallucinogenic.
Well, that sounds pretty hallucinogenic to me. If you're seeing green flames come up from the ground and you're wanting to follow them into an air vent, that to me is quote unquote hallucinogenic.
I get what you're saying. I just still feel like the trip would. Hard compared to other
granted,
things.
Technically, marijuana is considered a hallucinogen. It's one of those I don't know. I've never really seen a whole bunch of shit.
You seeing shit that ain't there. It's hallucinogenic.
I've seen some things I've definitely seen some things on some acid in my life. I've definitely seen some things on some mushrooms that I had to know this is not real.
Yes,
this is not there.
Yes, I love that.
And
I miss it.
Yeah.
When I did that, my experience, I lost concept of time. I couldn't see. I wasn't aware of anything around me. I just saw the TV that grew into something bigger.
Wow.
And I was just. And totally immersed or whatever, captured into the TV, and it looked like there was a Mickey Mouse or something, but it was just craziness going on. And but then slowly, as I was coming out of it, reality from the sides are starting to fade back in slowly, and I can see my girlfriend's face a little bit. And
I can definitely say that I had some intense experiences in nitrous rooms. I had some I had some intense experiences in nitrous rooms at raves and parties and festivals and stuff like that, and those were pretty wild. But you know, there was a bunch of stuff that, you know, I guess just never really, like, you know, I was telling Steve-O on the phone the other day, like ecstasy. I said I would try it once, and the one time I got it was
work.
It was bunk, and it didn't work, and I was like, well, that's the one time.
I can't believe
never
that.
Happened.
Yeah.
Never happened.
Really?
So, you know, that's that.
Might have been a good thing, too.
I considered that my sign from the universe that was your one time.
It is a good feeling, I'll tell you that.
So, never had that experience, but understand it from a lot of people. And, you know, it's one of those strange ones that your brain literally does not recover from.
You're right.
Whenever you go through extreme use of ecstasy, it literally burns out your serotonin uptake.
I've heard when you do CAT scans, there's holes in your brain, I've heard.
Well, it shows the dead receptors and stuff. And as opposed to cocaine, other drugs that use those up, and definitely, you know, that's what's overpowering and shooting out the joy drug that you're getting in whenever you do any of this stuff. Whereas those receptors will restore themselves with other drugs. With hardcore use of ecstasy, they do not. So people who use enough X eventually just literally can't be happy. And it's like, ooh, that's just kind of like bone-chilling to think about.
It is.
You know, and it takes some pretty hardcore abuse of ecstasy. And I know some people that, like, whenever they rolled, it was like they'd take like 5 tabs.
Oh,
you know, stuff like that.
No, I never did that.
That's rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew people that were hardcore, but I knew people that were big into the rave scene
Took
and
2
stuff
tops.
like that, you know. And I enjoyed going to raves back in the 90s. I would go there, and I would end up hooking up with my acid or whatever, and then I would make my merry way off. I would rarely do it there, you know. I would save it for a different experience. But to me, it's something that has to be respected always, and it's, you know... I think it's a show of our society, the fact that we have these things that are coming out, the fact that we have these synthetics that are coming out as an option and being sold as an option, and being given as an option when the more we see them, the more dangerous they're getting. You know, you didn't hear about these cases too frequently back in, I guess, 06. 07 was probably the first time that I heard the word spice kicking around.
Really?
It was right as I was coming back from Maine that I first heard it, and you know, people were using it and stuff like that. I was like, I don't know, okay, whatever, you know. And then I ran across somebody that used it and tried it, and I was like, it's all right, you know, it's not anything crazy, but yeah. I don't know. I think it's the readily available.
Yeah.
Like I said, being able to find it like I did at a dollar store.
Yeah.
Damn.
You know? Like I found it behind the counter of a dollar store.
Holy shit.
You know, it's being sold at some like gas stations and stuff like that. So the fact that it's being sold like that, I think is hugely irresponsible. It puts it into the realm of anybody being able to get it. As opposed to going into an individual shop that purveys things of such repute. And, you know, people go, nah, you know. They're not going to sell it to you much more than a dollar store won't.
Right.
You know, and to me, I guess that kind of stuff shouldn't have to exist to begin with. We should have deregulation. We should have... decriminalization at the very least of marijuana, and that's just my view on it. Going into other stuff from
so you definitely don't hear these
synthetics.
stories of people going to ER using just natural marijuana.
Not really.
It's a
Now
synthetic shit.
you have heard some stories of people, like there was one that was actually pretty famous, and I can't remember who the woman wrote for. If it wasn't the New York Times or something, but it was right after Denver legalized and everything, and she went to do a piece, And, you know, she smoked in college, whatever, but she hadn't smoked in years, and got an edible and ate a brownie and had like a trip. You know, because like she ate like this entire brownie and didn't realize, like, you know, even experienced smokers and stuff, you eat
her tolerance and all.
Well, you eat a little bit and you see what happens. Right. You know, because even if you smoke regularly, that is ingesting it in a totally different way, and it's a cumulative effect. And the more you put in there, the longer that's going to last. You know, because it's going to take your body longer to digest it, and that whole time it's excreting it into your system. And that's what she didn't realize. She waited like an hour and a half or so, and nothing had happened, and she was like, well, I guess I'll eat the rest of it. Hump. And yeah, and from that point on, had a crazy experience. So it can happen. Do you ever hear of an overdose of just marijuana? No. You hear of like an overdose of marijuana with something else or with alcohol involved.
Right.
You know, but marijuana in and of itself, I don't think has been blamed for a death.
Right.
In 1,000 or so years, something like that.
Right.
But on that note, and talking about getting high and enjoying things in life, let's kind of move it on and start getting high and listening to a little bit of this vinyl and let that seep into our brains, because the vinyl stuff that Nelson brought tonight for Vinyl Night. The artist is Monadh, and the album is Muara, and it is some really, really spacey ambient stuff. It's incredible to me that you're into that genre.
Oh yeah.
And explain to us how you came upon this album and why you wanted to share it with us tonight.
I've always been interested in this genre of music. First got into it with Stars of the Lead, which was originally an Austin band, and then they are now based out of Sweden or Copenhagen. Huh. But I got into this album through this incredible app and website. It's called somafm.com.
Okay.
And they have multiple channels, but they have an app. It's free, which is totally dope, commercial-free music. They have a lot of channels. One of the channels on there that I frequently listen to is called Groove Salad, and it's just
Groove Salad. What a name!
It's great. Their undertone to it is a nicely chilled plate of ambient beats.
Yeah, that's what we were listening to in your truck the other night. Yeah, that was some good stuff.
It's great. It's very, morning, evening, afternoon. It's just this constant, nice, chill.
Yeah.
Vibe. No lyrics, little lyrics. For the most lyrics I've heard that have been on there is specifically, not Portishead, but, Massive Attack. The iconic one with the lady listening.
Yep.
Or singing, excuse me. Anyways. Yeah. So that's how I got into them. It's through Soma FM.
Totally. Well, let's go ahead and cue up the first track and get that ready over there, Needles. And that first track is just absolutely amazing. I mean, just to even listen to it in the background here is, it's very ambient, it's very calming, but it makes you feel like you're going somewhere. It makes you feel like you're traveling. It's amazing. The repetitive part that's going on in the background. It's interesting with just that loop, the way it represents that and shows that.
Right.
And Steve-O just rejoined us. That first track is called Aminophila. And so let's with that, let's get ready to bring in the second track here, and we can talk about that one. It is Kalank or Kalanki is what it looks like.
Yep.
We have a new deck here in the studio, so it's nice.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I thought it didn't work.
Oh no, we're rocking it. Hit it. Go ahead. This is the second track off of Muara. Kalanki. And that's the second track on that. The ambience of it is absolutely amazing, and to me, it whenever I close my eyes and listen to it, I just see fields of glaciers everywhere. Like it's very icy and cold in the sound of it.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
To me, it's a very imagery-driven piece of music. I didn't really get a chance. This one kind of came on us today of, hey, let's give this a shot tonight and see if the gear works. But it was it was great to sit back and listen to while I was actually working at my workbench. That to me is a big test of music. If it actually puts me into that calm space. And this definitely reached out and kind of grabbed me and was like, oh yeah, that's nice and relaxing. And that's just a couple tracks into it.
Yeah, this one I really enjoy. This one here I can see like putting it on and going to sleep to it.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And it's interesting to me because I've known Nelson for years. He's literally, like we said on the Thanksgiving Day podcast, one of the first people I met in Austin. He was the first person my wife met in Austin. And to have made music with you, we made a track or two once. I'm still trying to dig those up so we can play them for the people. Because I think it would be interesting. But I had no idea how much you are into the electronic genre and into what I've tried or what I've come to find out is actually like house chill.
Right,
is what it's called.
House
and
chill.
There's I had no idea there was a whole genre of music for the stuff that I made. And it's interesting for me to hear the stuff that you're into on vinyl. And it's like, oh wow, that's very similar to what I make.
Well, I got a treat for you next time.
What's that?
When I ordered this one, I ordered another one that's like that John Hopkins.
Oh, nice.
I can't pronounce the word. Anyways, great album.
Okay.
Released in 2001, and it's just it's real deep electronic,
Nice.
chill. Yeah,
Nice.
it's great.
Well, let's get into track 3 here, which is Boira. And Needles is getting ready to drop the new gear over here.
Needles.
Hitting it. There we go. Faded on in. Track 3 of the album Muara by Monadh. The track is Boira. there's another one that just has that traveling feel to it, you know, where it's like you're slowly going somewhere. I feel like I'm like traveling inside of a worm tunnel, something like that.
Right.
Trying to get somewhere.
I feel like it stimulates other parts of the brain, you know?
Sure.
That's what I feel like.
Well, weren't we talking about something like that? And I brought up Stephen Halpern. Yes.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
When we were at the for Thanksgiving.
Sure did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You should check that out, man.
Well, and now,
incredible.
how did you go about finding this album, Nelson?
This was through Soma FM. They had played one of their tracks. Oh no, I'm sorry. This album, there's a website called Turntable Labs, and I buy a lot of equipment from them, and haven't bought much vinyl from them, but they had record store day sales going on, so they had 15% off, and I saw it, and it looked interesting, and it was under electronic, and so I just previewed a couple tracks from it, and I bought it off the limb like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and I mean, you sent me the digital or the link to it, and I actually listened to it there. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could actually listen to the entire album.
Right.
You know, and sample the whole thing. So I intend to get a digital copy of it.
Yes.
It's phenomenal. Great music.
You can use the download card.
Well, and, you know, it's interesting to me the way that this music has actually started a movement. I remember being on the Avant-Garde show in the 90s, and it was on the fringe of a lot of the artistic movement.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the art students from Rice University would come on the show. A lot of the jazz students that were making interesting, odd brass pieces and stuff would come on, and it was a lot of 4-track, you know, really oversampled, wild stuff.
Right.
And that's what my music was premiered as, was avant-garde. And I've always kind of considered that to be the genre, but it really is more in the electronic realm.
Absolutely.
You know, and I've kind of had to adapt myself to that. A lot of my pieces were, and still are, in the 20-minute to 40-minute range. I like to write long pieces, so for me it's tough. Like the last album that I did, Gemini, was interesting to me because it is in that golden range of 28 minutes. So it was kind of a challenge for me to write a song, and the project I was with, Shakuhachi Jones, really pushed me into writing songs that were in the 4 to 5 minute range. Now we're actually getting ready to flip the vinyl over here.
Flip the vinyl.
So
hear us live on dudesandbeer.com.
that's right.
4 tracks on this, and look at that.
Yep, that's what I said.
Hear the vinyl we're playing.
That's what I said. So the next track that we have,
Yes.
first track on side 2, is Rhea. And I found this one really interesting whenever I listened to it today. It kind of comes out a little bit different than... and let's go into the track if we can a little bit. I love hearing how a track develops from the beginning, but I really like hearing where a track goes.
Yeah.
So let's hear where one of these is going here, and kind of listen from Rhea from the middle to the end there, and see what we can check out. We ready back there, Needles?
Yeah, we're getting set
You got
up.
it, Needles.
Sweet.
Get it, Needles.
Nelson Needles Kuglke on the record track, dropping the needles
Dropping the needles.
Drop your needle.
with the
Drop
vinyl
that
love.
needle.
Here we go.
Drop
This
that
is
needle.
track 4 off of Muara by Monadh. Track is Rhea. And that's the wrap-up of Rhea. And like I said, you can really hear where he goes with one of those tracks in that one. You know, it's just absolutely moving. The way he actually uses the sound to travel things along left to right in the stereo field, as well as forward.
Yeah, I feel like it really gets into my head when they do that, you know, the way they produced it like that.
Well, and it's also the fact of carrying on themes from the present tracks that have already happened. And as we move into Sinking Stream, the next track, we can hear a little bit more of that. As soon as, there it is. Yeah, and just the textural nature of this one with the little wood sounds clacking back and forth between the left and the right speaker. It provides a whole different dimension. Like I said, as it goes forth through the album, you start having more dimension in the sound. It starts off, like I said, very cold, very icy, and as it moves forward, it starts getting warmer. You start getting more of the sounds of wood, things like that, like what was going on in the background there, the clacking, the click, 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 click. You know, nice wood sounds that are very naturally calming.
What was interesting while we were listening to that track, you were talking about taking the bells out of old analog phones, and then putting them in a pond and kind of getting that, what I consider like a Tibetan singing bowl, but miniaturized. But just bringing that up because of this music, just calming you down, like your thought pattern was. Just like thinking about calming things.
Exactly. And you know, I'm a big believer in that, especially when it comes to music. I'm an appreciator of all forms of music. My range is phenomenal as to what I have as a music collection. Right. But what I listen to, I take very seriously, and I am very careful and selective of what I listen to, because I truly do believe that we are moved by vibration. If you're listening to songs that are angry, you tend to be a little more cynical.
We're beings of vibrations.
Yeah, you know, I try to listen to a lot of stuff that is inert. I try to listen to a lot of stuff that's like classical music. Right. I'm trying to listen to more music like this, more music that is arranged more in the electronic realm, and more in the analog synthesis realm, where it's not necessarily vocal overtones. Lyrics, things like that. So
I'm just now recently getting into this kind of genre of music, you know, like ambience or whatever. I mean, it's really, you know, before I never really listened to it, and I'm finding it more intriguing lately because, I mean, like just hearing this album itself, the few tracks that I've heard, it really does to me seem like it stimulates a part of the brain, you know. To me, one time I used a neurophone device by Patrick Flanagan, and where you're hearing with your frontal lobe, and it's, I guess, through vibrations, you know,
Yeah.
And, it's not sound at all, and you're not using your ears, and you're using the frontal lobe. And so,
what it actually
like
is a resonant vibration against your skull that's using your skull as a speaker.
Ah, okay.
Is what's happening.
Oh, that's what
and there's a lot of research into that, and it's been used in advertising, stuff like that.
Yeah.
We've talked about it before, where they literally used it for banana sales in Norway and showed that like it increased banana sales by like 80%.
Oh, wow.
Because as people got right there next to the banana thing, like they heard an ad about bananas.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, wow. But that's the only place that you could hear it.
Yes.
And it's very narrow and
Right.
focused, and it literally vibrates your skull at a frequency.
Yeah.
So nobody else around it hears it.
Cool.
Until you're in that zone. And
Very
it's
cool.
pretty wild, the technology. But yeah, I mean, you can get sympathetic resonators that actually will attach to any surface and turn it into a speaker. It's basically
how they spy on
well,
people.
it's a
Pretty much.
piezoelectric effect. Yeah,
Yes.
basically, if you take a speaker and wire it backward, it's a microphone. Put it up against a door, and then turn the amplifier up, and I guarantee you'll hear some shit. It's an old trick, but it's
Guaranteed
absolutely
you'll hear
true.
some shit.
You can use a straight up home stereo speaker and do the exact same thing. Plug it into a guitar amp, put a 1/4 inch, strip it down, put it into the speaker, put it into an amplifier, and put that speaker up against a door and turn it up, and you'll hear what's going on in that room.
Right.
Nice.
A speaker is just a
Nice.
microphone in reverse, and a microphone is a speaker in reverse.
Hell yeah.
And it's amazing the sounds that you can get, and it's amazing some of the sounds that he's using that are analog, that are just utterly created naturally, and altering them and using them. That's a lot of what I love doing in my music. So
Right.
let's get into the next track, which is actually Litera. If I'm not mistaken, we're on track 6 here, right?
Yes.
And what I love in that one is the mechanical sound that's going on in the
Yeah.
background. There's the sound
It's
of this
unique.
machine. Hand me those empties real quick.
Oh,
Okay.
sure thing.
And there's this mechanical loop that's going on in the background.
Yes. Yes.
You know what came to my mind when I first heard that mechanical loop? I thought of the movie Silent Hill. I don't know why.
Oh, the video game. The
Yeah.
sound scores on the video games are
This-
incredible.
Oh, okay.
Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah. That really reminds me a lot of Aleatoric music.
Yeah,
I
well,
don't know
get
if
into that for a little bit.
Aleatoric?
You've talked about it before.
Yeah.
Whenever we did the last vinyl night.
Oh yes, yeah, and that's actually one of the big bands. One of the main bands that's really into aleatoric music is the Books, and the Vinyl Me Please, which is the monthly membership. Shout out to Vinyl Me Please.
Yeah.
Please sponsors. Just kidding. Well, not really, but their November release was the Books.
Okay.
And one of their good albums is called Thought of Food.
All right.
And it's good. It's aleatoric, so we can do that at some point too.
Well, explain aleatoric
Yes.
music to people.
So
Yeah.
aleatoric music, kind of what you heard there. It's you got a lot of electronic, but some organic sounds as well, right? Like a machine working.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of aleatoric is. It's you take digitized sounds of nature, things moving, and you put music to it.
Okay.
And so they take, the books are really crazy. They take just some crazy shit, just from like to rallies at high schools to
Really?
like people talking in public, and just put this most beautiful music you could possibly think of with like a live celloist, a guy on a crazy synth. That's
Nice.
amazing.
That's
And-
pretty
and
amazing
lyrics,
type
too.
of, that's an amazing sound.
It's good.
Well, and that's just it. It's more creating a soundscape, and that's what I've tried to
Absolutely,
explain to
soundscape,
people
yes.
of what my music more is trying to express an emotion, a feeling,
Right.
or I mean, I did a lot of concept albums. I did one called Axon, where it was literally following the stimulus. From the point of outside to the point of the brain observing it, and what happened inside of the brain to process the stimulus outside.
Yeah.
And it kind of traveled you through the brain in that
Right.
process.
Wow.
So yeah, and you end up using a lot of physical sounds. I use a lot of rare earth frequencies. I use a lot of planetary frequencies and frequencies that are like almost subliminal frequencies.
Right,
They're frequencies
right.
that you can feel but not necessarily hear once it's inside the mix of the music. Like if I was to give you a pure 8 hertz tone, you would hear it, but it would be a low click.
Right.
And that's all you would hear in your headphones is a click, 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 just a click every 8 seconds. But once you bury that behind some
Right.
music, you'd be amazed what you can do.
Yes.
And it operates off the principle of entrainment in physics, where if you swing two pendulums the opposite way, they'll
Yes.
eventually match up.
Right.
And it's the same thing. If you start walking on your left foot down a hallway and I start walking on my right, eventually we will syncopate. And we may fall out of sync, but we'll syncopate.
Right.
And if you expose your brain to certain frequencies long enough, like
Right.
alpha waves long enough, it will more readily produce those waves, and you can have more creativity. You can then kind of sculpt the way that your brain thinks and works, and it's kind of takes that concept to a different level using frequencies and stuff like that
Right.
in music. And there have been people that have done some really interesting and wild studies on that stuff. And as we talk about that, let's get into the last track on this, which is called Convection. And it was one of my favorite tracks. I think it's a great closer to the album. And we'll talk a little bit about that after we listen to it right here. This is the final track, Convection, off the album Muara by the artist Monadh. the delays that he uses in that are so absolutely phenomenal and great. And at one point you took your headphones off, Nelson, and you were like, I really love where he went with that.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's something that I used to mistakenly call my music minimalistic because it's very similar to this. But it's far from minimalistic. There's so much subtlety in what's going on. Even right now, as it builds in the background.
Yeah.
As the synth sound builds and the pads build to a higher register and start bringing about more light. You can really tell that things are coming to a crescendo. Things are coming to a moment.
Right.
I like how it when I'm listening to music like this, it's like it's going through my head. It's not just like on one end of the head and the other, ear to ear. It's like it seems like it's in my head going through it, rather than just hearing just normal type music. I'm just listening. This is actually going through my head.
I like to call it ear candy.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely.
It's just so delicious. It's great with a great set of headphones and a great preamp, like a 2 preamp.
Oh, yeah.
Just that rich tone. And
and for me, it's the fact of, like I said, it's the subtlety in the engineering. It's something that, it took me years to understand. And for me to even, I was telling Steven earlier, whenever you're recording, whenever you're doing stuff, it's so easy to overproduce.
Yes.
Right. And, the stuff that you've given me the last few times to listen to has really given me some strength inside. And I want to thank you, Nelson, for sharing this stuff, because it gives me some strength inside to return to my musical roots and doing what I was doing originally. Sans beat. Not that I don't love producing beats and doing the wild stuff that I'm doing with that and the cool music, but I did a lot of stuff on this realm where it was much more, synth patty and just straight soundscape like this. And I really need to kind of get back to my root with that.
Right.
So
the best thing is at the root. The best thing is the root.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And it's not that I haven't grown. I mean, even every artist grows. It's the point of you've got to maintain that. You really have to remember what kind of nurtured you and stay true to that as well. And there's a big part of me that is this style of music. It is the complex long piece that if you don't have 15 minutes, I'm sorry.
Right.
I wish you had 15 minutes to listen to a piece of music.
Because you need to listen to every 15 minutes of it.
Some of the best pieces of music ever written are like 20 minutes long.
Right.
They're huge sonatas and stuff like that are epic pieces and parts and movements. That the movements in and of themselves are great, and that's the end of the album, folks. That's the end of the vinyl right there.
I really enjoy music like this. I really appreciate it and admire it, and man, like I wish like I could accomplish something like that one day or some or other. Like if I felt like it. I find that difficult to do. Is this style difficult, Chris? Would you say?
For me, I mean, well, and it's kind of I don't know. I would say as an artist, that's kind of the question of like, is it hard for you to write a lead guitar line? Right. For me, for years, it was easy for me to write lyric music. I wrote poetry all the time. If I didn't write like 3 poems a week, there was something wrong with me. And now for me to take lyric to paper is so hard. It's so entirely hard. It's literally a muscle that I didn't flex for so long. For me to sit down and write a song on an acoustic guitar is just, it's work. But for me to make music like that, for me to make music that literally the only way I've explained it to people for years is it's actuating the sounds that I hear in my head.
Yeah. Right.
Like, I'm always hearing music in my head. I'm always hearing sounds. If I go, I mean, it's one of the things that drives me nuts going to malls and going to busy places is I'll start hearing things in syncopated rhythms.
Yeah.
It'll, everything will start kind of bombarding me, and that's the only way it makes sense. And it's great, and it's cool, and it helps out in a lot of ways because I can hear everything at once and individual things at the same time. But it's very annoying, and it takes a lot of effort to filter that out.
Right.
I've kind of observed by listening, kind of not just tonight, but overall from like ambient style music, is that like one of the secrets of kind of producing certain music like this is like you kind of have this kind of like two different like things going on, two different frequencies. Or if you want to go that route, call it frequencies.
Sure.
You have like, say, like a droning thing, and then you have something like you were saying, it's out of sync, but then at some certain points, it's
it's in sync.
Yeah, it's in sync. It's syncopated. At some point.
And the question that you asked me, I didn't even get to answering it, and I'm sorry. The question that you asked me was, is it hard for me to make this style of music? And for me, I would say no. For me, this style of music comes naturally. It's just what I hear in my head all the time. So for me to be able to go through my synthesizers, find sounds that I'm looking for, and arrange and compose in the way that I was taught to arrange and compose, because that's how my brain thinks. I don't arrange and compose in chordal or a notation format. I arrange and compose in a bar graph format, and it's this sound for this duration. It's kind of like if you've ever edited video and you have things in your timeline, or if you've ever edited music and you have different sounds at different times in the timeline. It's just like that. And even to this day, I still very simplistically use my recording rig. I've got a very ornate recording rig, but I'm a commit to the mix musician. When I find the delay that I want on my guitar, this is the delay that I want on my guitar in all perpetuity in this track, and that's how it is. And it drives poor Alan crazy because I've asked him to mix some of my shit. He's like, oh, I want to put a delay on it, but damn it, you already put this delay on it. I'm like, yeah, I know, but that's what I want. So, work with what's there.
Should have used a DI box.
But I still use my stuff in a very simplistic way, and I'm still an arranger that when I'm writing a 20-minute piece, if 15 minutes into that track that I'm recording, I mess up, I rewind and I start over. I don't punch record or anything like that. I take the whole track from the beginning. Yeah. And it's hard.
That's a toughie there.
It's hard.
Yeah,
it's not easy. It's not easy, but that's where I feel my music comes from.
You get 15 minutes in and like, I wasn't done and I messed up. Yeah, start over.
Yeah. Start completely over, and it takes some memory as to what you're doing and what you're trying to do and the sounds that you're trying to get and crafting it.
Right.
But to me, it brings about a very old school concept. It brings about a very disciplined concept, and a concept of being able to get something out quickly also, where I'm not going to do 85 variations of it and see how it comes out.
Right.
I am very much a channel when I make my music like that. I don't let a whole lot of pretension get in the way. I know where I want to go with it and the sounds that I want to generate. So for me as an artist, yes, I would say it comes naturally, it comes easy for me to make that style of music.
That's awesome.
Much like for some people, it's easy for them to play the blues.
Right, exactly.
But they couldn't play metal to save their life.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, I know pocket bass players that can play any blues groove you give them. They can hang back in any rock and roll band. You throw them in a country band, they are at a loss.
Yeah.
You throw them in reggae, and it's like, whoa. I don't even know where the hell to hit on that. So, I mean, for me, like I said, for me, making that kind of music kind of came naturally. It's where I naturally progressed to before I even found it, really. It was an arrangement and composition teacher that told me to keep my eye out for these certain composers. She was like, the things you're doing are way far advanced from what you know, but they exist, and you need to check out these people because they're people that use the concept that you're using. And it was like Caroline Stockhausen and Philip Glass, John Cage, those kind of composers. And then late at night one night, I was listening to KPFT in Houston on a Sunday and heard this piece by John Cage. And I was like, holy shit. Here's a show playing what she was talking about just a few weeks ago.
Huh. Interesting.
And I contacted them, and I was like, hey, I've actually written some music like this. This is amazing. I've been looking for this stuff forever. How often are you on? He was like, oh, I'm on every Sunday night. As a matter of fact, next Sunday is our 4th Sunday local composers night. If you would like to bring some of your music on, you're more than welcome to. And that begat like 5 years of every month bringing like 30 to 45 minutes of new music.
Awesome.
Like, it was just a crazy tome of music that I wrote. But yeah, it was through utter happenstance that I found it, and that I was encouraged to keep making this music, where there was a scant audience at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night. Occasionally this dude would call in from the Woodlands, and he would be listening and like painting to my music and shit.
Oh wow!
And it was like, oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
Like some dude's painting to my music.
Yeah,
right
absolutely.
Now. That's dope.
Your creative outlet is their creative outlet.
Yeah,
helps their creative outlet.
So it was pretty neat, and sometimes we'd get some really interesting callers at like 11 o'clock on Sunday, nice and drunk, talking about it. Like, hey, yeah, well, the artist is here if you want to talk to him.
Very cool, man.
So, yeah, I'm all about this kind of music, and I love the fact that you want to keep bringing it in. We need to look to a next vinyl night here in the next few weeks.
Yes, absolutely.
Now that we have at least some semi-working gear here in the studio, I'm working on getting my platter fixed as we speak. So, on that note, everybody, that pretty much wraps it for episode 79 of Dudes and Beer. 79, guys. 79. I was just looking at the fact that we have 74 hours on Spreaker.
Oh yeah.
We have 74 hours of content.
Go
That's
listen
not
to
even
it all.
of it. That's not even all of it. Like, there's more on dudesandbeer.com.
Nice.
Every episode ever is on dudesandbeer.com. So if you want to check out episodes, that's where to go. And on that note, folks, thank you so much for tuning in, as always. And please, drive safe, be safe, whatever you do. And hey, remember, if you can't be good,
Be good at it.
Yeah!
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Dudes and Beer Podcast. To listen to our live audio streams, tune in at dudesandbeer.com or Spreaker.com/dudesandbeer. You can find our episodes on SoundCloud.com as well as the Google Play and iTunes market. You can also find us on YouTube, Stitcher, and your favorite podcast service. Dudes and Beer is a proud member of the Revolution Digital Group family of podcasts. Thanks for listening, everybody, and until next time, drink responsibly.